Welcome to another week of Completion Critiques, where each episode we review a game's completion and achievement rates to see what we can learn about how it engaged with audiences and if there were any major pain points or stumbling blocks that turned people away. We're basing it on those metrics up there. If you'd like to suggest a game for a future show, please get in touch. And if you'd like to vote for future episodes, all Patreon supporters get voting rights. You'll find links to everything down below. But with that said, let's begin. Let us switch to our second game for this episode, and that is The Surge. I decided to go with the first Surge instead of the second because Surge 2 came out in 2019, which would make it 2 years old, while Surge 1 is now 4 years old. So it will give us a little bit more of an accurate reading in terms of its churn and fan base. Now, the Surge, of course, is very interesting. Of the quote-unquote off-brand Soulslikes that didn't come from Software, it's probably one of the more popular ones, or at least one of the more name recognition ones. And this is from Deck 13, who did, Lords of the Fallen? There it is. And as a point of comparison, Lords of the Fallen had more people who bought it, but not as good of a review score. 59% find it positive. And The Surge is very much the spiritual sequel to that, in terms of its design. But it is one of those games that, as with a lot of the off-brand Souls-likes, that it really did not resonate, I think, for me as much, because of having to relearn all the timings and the weird quirks of its system. But in a year where in that time where people were always looking for a new Souls-like, let's see how well this one did. And this one, I am very well aware of these difficulty spikes. And I honestly think that the ratings for this one may be closer to what Sekiro would have gotten if it didn't have the From Software name attached to it. So, literally, from the first 3 minutes of playing this game, they lost 7% of its fan base. Because on my own 2 feet, it's just literally get out of the opening tram and wheel yourself to one of the class stations and get your rig. And again, it will never surprise me how quickly people will quit a game if literally the slightest thing annoys them. And this is, of course, why UI UX is so important. And just like with Sekiro, it lost people before we even got to the actual mechanic of live, die, repeat. First day on the job, I believe that gets you have to get to the upgrade station for that. Sorry, I dropped this, found your lost tech scrap. And then from 81, we churn down to 65, Butcher's Bill. And I honestly don't remember what that one does. If anyone can remind me, please let me know. But I very well know what PAX is. PAX is the first true boss of the game, and that occurs maybe 25 to 30 minutes, give or take, if you kind of know what you're doing, but you're still playing the game new. So within about 30 minutes of playing, the Surge lost almost half its player base. And again, that number does not surprise me in the slightest. Because we have a very hard Souls-like without the name recognition and of course having all the difficulty of it. So we keep going down. Let's see. Aren't any other major points? Honestly, no, it's stabilized. So on the other end, even though it lost a lot of people within the first 30 minutes, it did stabilize very early into this game. Oh yeah, I would agree with that one for this. Because to this day, I still don't know what I did wrong with playing the Surge. I leveled up my character, I upgraded all my gear and weapons, and I was still getting just like rocked, even by common enemies. El Gordo, if he's watching, remembers the masochism that I put in to beat the final boss and the final area of this game. So, what I find kind of funny is that the drone upgrade is literally what you get in the second area the second you finish the first boss. So 52.7% beat the fight, and then a little under 1% just said, nah, I'm done. I don't need to see anything more of this. But as we keep going down, again, they're clearing these additional challenges. Firebug, I believe, is the second boss, or the second true fight in the game. Still going down. The second area, to me, I expected a lot more churn. Because that's where it kind of settles into this very frustrating groove of having to fight these enemies and deal with these bosses. Big Sister. The Black Service. That is an interesting encounter. That is when you're fighting, I think, your first boss, who is a humanoid. And that fight can rock you really hard. Creo killed the Veosar. That's more or less, I think, a cutscene. Right jump for the jump. Defeat a boss while carrying. Raging drones. Let's see. I'm trying to see where the actual achievement is for beating this game. By rebooting the network. Oh, no, that is that. Ooh. This is actually very low in terms of completion. Some of these I know are from the DLC. But yeah, as you can see, when we get into these secondary challenges or the DLC, very few people stuck with it. I know I didn't bother getting through that. Yeah. So, if this is right, I know this is a boss. You have to fight the squad chief. By rebooting the network. And for the good of mankind. So, we have a clear rate there. And where did Brave New World come in? So that must be the extra hard challenge. So what that tells me then is that we have a clear rate, at least to get one ending, is at 13.3%. So if we do the math there, and we'll round that down to 13. So 13 divided by 53, 25. So not the best in terms of a core base. It was apparently enough to get them a sequel. But again, with Soulslikes, what's very interesting is that Big Sister and the Black Service, those were optional battles. Is that as we go down, once you kind of make it past that initial hurdle or that initial major churn, again, going from 100 up here to 52 or 53%, people, I think, as we've said, I think the try hard factor or the get good factor, I think, kicked in for them. Because that second area, I really did not like it. And again, I played through it primarily because I wanted to see where the game was going, again, as a fan of Soulslikes. But the game definitely lacked the balance of Dark Souls. It got very annoying as enemies tended to just really outpace you in terms of your stats. For the people who made it through Area 2, they started to fight the kind of animal-style enemies in Area 3, and those guys could easily two-shot you, even if you knew what you were doing and had good gear. And it's not surprising to me that the kind of completionist achievements had higher than normal clear rates. You know, acquire a full set of this gear, acquire a full set of that gear. Because you really need to get all those gear pieces to start putting together a valid build to have any chance of winning. A Sentinel one I find interesting. That is the bonus one. That you have to fight the guy who's higher than normal difficulty in Area 2 to start acquiring. But this is a game that, if we were to be kind, and let's say you knew what you were doing, within 2 hours of playing it, you should be at least in Area 3, maybe Area 4. Again, there's always a difficulty factor to keep track of, but this is one of those games that I feel that the majority of the returns most likely occurred right here at the Penny Arcade Expo. And again, that is 30 to 40 minutes, I would say, if you're new to the game. If you're returning or you're trying to speedrun it, you could probably do that in 15 to 20, give or take. And I think that's kind of the thing about Souls-likes in general. Unfortunately, we'll never be able to see what the return rate of one of these games is, but I'm assuming that the return probably occurs way before the 2 hour mark. And I just wonder just how many people just kept the game and just said, you know, I'll come back to it someday to clear it. But with the Surge, the game definitely got harder. It got so much more frustrating as we make our way down to some of these advanced areas, and especially the final area. And I think, again, that the try-hard factor, the get-good factor, really did keep these people invested in wanting to play it. The O5 smelting machines, those are the bonus kind of mini-boss fights. But one thing's for sure, that if you're going for the additional achievement, or the second ending, which would have been, where was it? Brave New World. Most people weren't going to have it. And that's one that requires you to do things very specific. I think a lot of people just beat the game and then said, I'm never going to play this game ever again. And we can definitely see that with the DLC. Now, the DLC, you could unlock it, I believe, as soon as you finish Area 2, if I remember right. But it did come out several months later from the first game. And as we've said before with the Grim Dawn example, if you're going to do DLC in terms of new episodes or new things for people to come back to, a lot of people, I think, aren't going to do that. They've been in the game once. Why do they want to replay it? Especially if they found it frustrating or just got their fill the first time. And I can tell you guys that all the achievements that involving the DLC, I definitely didn't do that. And I would imagine end of transmission would have been the beat the DLC challenge. So less than 2% actually beat that DLC. And I just want to double check with this DLC over here. Were there additional episodes? Park. Wait. I may be confusing this in terms of the DLC content. Creo World. Okay. So Creo World was the first DLC for it. And then what did the Good and the Bad and the Augmented get? The DLC sounds very similar to what they try to do with Borderlands as well. Challenge powerful opponents. Okay, so this is just an arena fight. Opponents with their uniques. I wonder how much of the DLC weapons are just overpowered compared to the base weapons that you can get in this game. Oh wait, I want to look at this for a second. The Surge got an 8 out of 10 from Polygon. I am very surprised by that, honestly. And again, I wonder how many people who reviewed the Surge actually beat the Surge. And that's something we'll never know. And as we keep looking here, I'm trying to see if there's any achievements for getting bonus weapons. Because another really interesting thing that the Surge did was if you beat the bosses in specific ways, they drop higher than normal weapons, or higher than normal quality weapons, or versions of them. Which is a really cool idea, except that the game doesn't tell you what those options are, and you have to look them up outside of it in a lot of cases. Or Power of 80. I don't know what Shall Not Pass is. Charge for the good of mankind. I don't remember if Squad Chief Helvig is a required fight or not, because it occurs lower in the achievement rates compared to the completion ones. Because I do remember there is a humanoid fight in the Surge that you do have to get through. And I wonder if that is the Black Cerberus or not. But again, as we've seen in the lessons that we can take away from our two games this week, when your game is kind of promoted as a Soulslike or an incredibly challenging encounter, you're going to get massive churn. Because a lot of people don't like to hit their head against the wall to play through a game, unless you're a try-hard or weird masochist. But once that group has kind of left, these games do retain people. And they're keeping them invested all the way through. Or you're not seeing that huge burn rate. And I would honestly have said that if From Software, or if Sekiro didn't have the From Software name to it, I would have expected its clear rate to be in like the 20 to 10 percentile. Just in terms of people not wanting to put up with that design. Whereas again, as a point of comparison, Sekiro is at 32, the Surge is at 13. And it's, I think, a really also good case in point again about, again, brand recognition here. But at some point, maybe next year, we'll do the Surge 2 and see just how well that game survived or how well it kept people. But honestly, I think that one will have higher churn. Primarily because I think people playing it didn't want to deal with kind of, the quirks of it as much. Just as brand recognition matters, so does, new game or first game in a series does. But again, another point of lesson here. People typically don't play additional content in a DLC. And I think it's far better, or at least far better for the consumer, if DLC is integrated directly into the game, much like the new masteries were in Grim Dawn. Because so few people even bothered to buy DLC 1 or DLC 2, that I do wonder if it was worth it to them to put that stuff in. Because again, it's not like they were doing this in the middle of the campaign. So the only people who stuck with the DLC were the ones who probably beat the Surge, and that is a very low number. But I think with that, we can begin to wrap things up for this week's episode. So if we look at our scores, the Sekiro definitely did far better than the Surge. And I think again that the Surge coming out in that period where there weren't a lot of other high quality off-brand Souls-likes definitely contributed to its popularity. I think people were just very much starved for more Dark Souls. You can't, the masochism hunger you can't get rid of. And at some point we'll probably have to take a look at Code Vein and see how well anime Souls did in the grand scheme of things. But with that said, thank you everybody for watching this live recorded. If you would like to vote for future episodes, be sure to check out the Patreon link down below, as I'm opening that up to all of our supporters. I do these shows starting around 4:30 ET on Tuesdays if you want to catch them live. Do the liking, smashing, subscribing, and all that goes with social media here. And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where he's in the art and science of games. Until our next show, have a great night.